So in the next 60 seconds, over 300 hours of video are going to be uploaded to YouTube.
Which is just, I mean, it's incomprehensible,
It
right?
really is.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you've got thousands of articles being published, millions of marketing emails just flooding into inboxes.
Yeah, a total avalanche.
Exactly.
Oh.
And honestly, you, the person listening to us right now, you're probably going to ignore almost all of it.
Oh, for sure. We all do.
Right. Because we've all developed this nearly impenetrable psychological armor against being pitched to. You know, you're sitting on a train, or maybe you're avoiding a task at your desk, and your thumb is just swiping.
Just that endless, frictionless blur.
Yes, a continuous blur of content just flying past your retinas. So if you are the one trying to actually speak, whether you're like pitching a product to a client or presenting in a boardroom, or honestly just trying to get a friend to listen to a new idea, how do you actually pierce that armor?
How do you make them stop?
Exactly. How do you get a human being to stop and pay attention?
Yeah.
Because our mission today for this deep dive is to decode the literal architecture of attention.
And it really is the defining challenge of modern communication because, attention is no longer freely given. It is fiercely guarded.
Yeah, people are protective of their time.
Super protective. We're operating in an environment of unprecedented noise. So to cut through that, you can't just be louder than the next person. You have to fundamentally understand the mechanics of how human beings process information, like how the brain prioritizes visual and auditory cues, and how we subconsciously decide what's actually worth our most valuable and scarce asset, which is our time.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to figure this out, we are digging into a really fascinating live source today. It's an office hours session featuring Sabba Keynejad, who is the CEO of VEED.
Right, the video platform.
Yeah, and they handle like 80 million YouTube views and have 10 million monthly users. So he knows his stuff. And he's alongside Harry Dry, who is just an absolute powerhouse when it comes to the mechanics of storytelling and marketing hooks.
Two guys who live and breathe this stuff.
Exactly. And to frame the environment we're talking about, think about the old days for a second. Think about sitting in a dentist's waiting room, mindlessly flicking through the pages of an old Life magazine.
Flick, flick, flick.
Right. Your brain is basically in standby mode. So what actually made you stop on a specific page back then? Today, the medium has changed from glossy paper to a glowing piece of glass, but human psychology, it hasn't evolved one bit.
No, it hasn't at all. And that standby mode you just mentioned, that is crucial to understand. When someone is in that frictionless state of scrolling or skimming, their brain is operating on a highly efficient, very low energy setting.
Yeah, power saving mode.
Exactly. They're actively conserving cognitive calories. So to break a person out of that state, to force them to stop the flicking, you have to induce a pattern interrupt.
You got to jolt them awake.
You do. You have to jolt the brain out of that low energy mode and demand active processing. And the crazy part is the window. You have to achieve that. It happens at the absolute very start of the interaction. You have roughly 3 seconds.
3 seconds, wow.
That's it.
3 seconds to derail the train. And according to the breakdown from Sabba and Harry, there are essentially 2 fundamental architectures for a hook that can actually do this.
All right, the 2 big ones.
Yeah. The first is what they call the promise. And you can visualize this as a firm, almost aggressive handshake. You are explicitly stating, without any ambiguity whatsoever, exactly what the viewer or listener is going to get if they hand over their time.
It's effectively a psychological contract. Think of a massive YouTube creator like Mr. Beast, right?
Roger.
He doesn't deal in subtlety at all. He starts a video by saying, I bought everything in a grocery store.
No confusion there.
None. Or the filmmaker Casey Neistat titling a video, Snowboarding with the NYPD. These are massive, bold, incredibly concrete claims. The transaction is just utterly transparent.
You give me 10 minutes, I give you this crazy spectacle.
Exactly. A spectacle that perfectly fits that exact description.
But, and this is crucial, there's a massive trap door built into the promise. If you make that kind of explicit contract, you absolutely must deliver the goods.
You cannot back out.
Right. If Casey Neistat's video is just him, like sitting in his studio talking about snowboarding and the police never actually show up, the audience feels viscerally betrayed.
Oh, they'd riot in the comments.
They really would. You've broken the contract, and they will probably never trust your content again. So you can only use the promise when the literal meat of your content, the core value, is undeniably spectacular on its own.
Which, presents a significant problem for most professionals.
Yeah, a huge problem.
Because what if the meat of your presentation isn't inherently spectacular? I mean, what if you aren't snowboarding with the police?
Right, what if you're just a normal person?
Exactly. What if you're selling a B2B software feature or presenting a quarterly budget to your team? That is where the second type of hook becomes completely necessary, which is the open loop.
The open loop.
Yeah, this is the calculated art of withholding information to manufacture intrigue. So instead of the explicit promise of snowboarding with the NYPD, an open loop would be, you'll never guess who I snowboarded with.
Oh, I see. Sabba actually frames this brilliantly from a business perspective in the source. He points out that you have to translate incredibly boring features into unexpected emotional values right out of the gate.
Yes.
Like if his software company wants to push a new transcription feature, starting a video with, here is how to add subtitles. I mean, that's a guaranteed way to make people swipe away.
It's a completely closed loop, and it's boring.
Right, it's boring.
Yeah.
But if you reframe that exact same feature to, here is how to save 2 hours a day, you've opened a loop. The viewer now has to stick around to find out how they actually get those 2 hours back.
What's fascinating here is the underlying neurology of the open loop. It's what makes it so incredibly potent. The human brain is quite literally wired as a prediction machine.
The prediction machine.
Yeah, we constantly seek patterns and completion. So when you present the brain with an incomplete pattern, like an unresolved puzzle, it creates this state of cognitive dissonance.
It bugs us.
It really does. The brain hates unresolved loops. It cannot resist the urge to close them. By intentionally withholding a key piece of information, you trigger what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect.
Oh, right.
You force the listener into a state of tension where they physically feel compelled to lean in, like they cannot mentally move on until they acquire the missing piece of the puzzle.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I have to push back a little.
Mhm.
Isn't there a massive risk here? Well, think about it like a mystery box. If I keep handing my audience these little mystery boxes, eventually they're going to feel manipulated. I mean, it just sounds like the literal definition of clickbait, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you balance creating that cognitive dissonance without making the audience feel like they're just being tricked into paying attention?
Well, it is clickbait if you fail the ultimate test, which is the payoff.
Okay.
The core problem with clickbait isn't the mystery box itself. It's that the box is completely empty when the audience finally opens it.
Right, there's nothing inside.
Exactly. Clickbait leverages that Zeigarnik effect to grab attention, but then it provides a profoundly disappointing or completely irrelevant resolution. But a masterfully crafted open loop that creates tension that is entirely justified by the value of the payoff.
It actually delivers.
Right. And to build that kind of loop responsibly, you can't just use cheap tricks. You have to use specific architectural blueprints.
So let's pull those blueprints apart, because this is where the theory actually becomes the toolkit you can use. The first structural tactic they talk about for opening a loop responsibly is juxtaposition.
Yes.
This means taking two concepts that absolutely do not belong together and just smashing them into the same sentence. There's a brilliant quote referenced from the legendary copywriter Eugene Schwartz where he says, "Writing is the search for juxtaposition."
That's such a good quote.
It is. You take a subject from point A to point Z, and the sheer distance between those 2 points is what creates the intrigue.
Because the contrast generates immediate friction. Take the example of the hook they discussed. 10 seconds that ended my 20-year marriage.
Wow.
Right? Think about the massive cognitive distance between those two concepts. 20 years of complex human history abruptly condensed into a 10-second failure.
It's jarring.
It is. Or another hook they highlight. From lying in bed with zero ideas to negotiating with the biggest superstar on Earth. The brain immediately recognizes that point A and point Z are miles apart, and it instantly demands to know the trajectory that connects them. The space between those 2 points basically becomes an irresistible vacuum.
Tactic number 2 is a close cousin to juxtaposition, but it's more about breaking heuristics.
Yeah.
It's do the opposite.
Oh, this is a fun one.
Yeah. You look at the ingrained visual and conceptual norms of whatever category you're operating in, and you just deliberately invert them. Like if we're watching television and a commercial starts playing with the pristine waterfall and young, beautiful models in activewear, our brain instantly categorizes it.
Right, this is a bottled water ad. I can ignore this.
Exactly. But if you want to sell liquid death canned water, what do? You show a grandmother chugging a tall boy can of water that literally looks like beer.
You shatter the categorical heuristic. And, you know, a heuristic is just a mental shortcut the brain uses to process information quickly.
To save calories.
Right. We see thousands of ads, so the brain categorizes them to save energy. When you show a grandmother chugging from a tall boy, the brain's water ad shortcut fails to apply. It errors out.
The total glitch.
Yeah, it is forced to wake up and process the image actively to figure out what it's looking at. Or take Smirnoff vodka. The category norm for alcohol is usually some variation of make every night a party.
Sure.
The opposite unexpected hook is every morning is a Smirnoff morning. It's completely jarring. It forces a double take because it violates the established rule of the whole category.
Then there is the third tactic, which is arguably the most sophisticated way to open a loop, and that is hide the product within a story.
This one takes skill.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because as we established, consumers today have incredibly thick armor against direct selling. If you are pitching an astrology chart company, the example is called the Night Sky, you just show a picture of the charts, people tune out immediately.
The armor just deflects the pitch.
Right. Instead, you tell a story. The ad they show has Mike and Rachel surprising each other with gifts on their wedding day. The product is entirely secondary to the human narrative.
Another fascinating example they dissect is an ad for the mobile game Cut the Rope.
Oh, I remember that game.
Yeah, and they didn't just show gameplay and say, download our app. The ad opens on a beautiful romantic trip to Corfu. A girlfriend is looking incredibly annoyed because her boyfriend is completely ignoring her, intensely tapping on his phone.
But you don't see the phone at first. Right?
Exactly. You don't know what he's doing. They're telling 80% of the story and leaving that critical 20% gap for the audience to figure out.
I love the mechanics of this, and here's another pushback. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of the person listening to us right now. If they try to pitch a new workflow process to their boss or present quarterly financials, at what point does hiding the product and leaving a 20% gap stop being intriguing and start being just incredibly confusing? I mean, it's like playing hide and seek with your own value proposition. You can't just walk into a boardroom and talk in riddles.
No, you can't, and it's a critical distinction. Hiding the product doesn't mean obscuring your ultimate value proposition or being vague.
Okay.
It means delaying the introduction of your solution until you have made the audience deeply care about the problem.
Yeah.
In a boardroom, if you start with slide 1 detailing a new software integration, you've lost them. But if you start with a story about a specific employee losing 3 hours a week to manual data entry, and you really build the frustration of that narrative, you are making the executives actively participate in feeling the pain of the problem.
You're making them feel it.
Right. Passive consumers ignore solutions. Active participants who feel the problem will desperately search for the solution. You only reveal your product, the software integration, once they are practically begging for a way out of the narrative tension you've built.
Which is the perfect pivot to the engine that actually drives this whole thing. Because you've used juxtaposition, you've shattered a heuristic, you've opened a loop, you have successfully bought their attention for 3 seconds.
But that's just the start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How do you stop them from getting bored and walking away 10 seconds later? How do you hold them? You have to fuel the narrative with stakes and tension. Every story, every pitch needs a gamble.
Without a gamble, there is zero reason to care about the outcome. The stakes must continually be raised. There's a brilliant example analyzed from Hims, the company that sells erectile dysfunction medication.
Right.
They don't start their copy by talking about the chemical composition of the pill or their discreet shipping. They use the hook, confessions from a sexless marriage.
That's heavy.
Very heavy. That introduces real, raw human vulnerability. And vulnerability is the ultimate stake because it carries the risk of emotional devastation.
Vulnerability inherently creates investment from the listener. Another example from the source is the entrepreneur Pat Walls. He didn't just say, hey, I'm going to try using AI.
Yeah, it's too boring.
Right. He made a video attempting to code an entire business with AI until he made $100,000. That is a massive public gamble. Why do people watch a 20-minute video of a guy just staring at a screen?
Because they want to see if he fails.
Exactly. The risk of public failure creates the tension. Or Marta, a woman who went wildly viral on LinkedIn, not by posting her polished resume, but by posting a raw video opening up about the terror of being laid off.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, tension is simply the gap between what is and what could be. Brands and professionals often fear tension. They prefer safe, sterile messaging, which paradoxically makes them entirely forgettable. And there's a very specific mechanical way you inject those stakes into the actual architecture of your sentences.
Right, the wording matters.
It comes down to the power of a single word. But There is a famous storytelling rule from the creators of the show South Park. They argue that you should only progress a narrative using the words but or therefore. You should almost never progress a story using the word and.
Because "and" just creates a static shopping list. And lists are inherently devoid of tension. The example analyzed in the session is the phrase, 1 million Muslims in New York looking for love.
Which is a statement of fact.
Right, it's a fact. It's perfectly fine, but it's completely flat. Now, swap the conjunction. 1 million Muslims in New York. BT, you're still single.
Bing.
Suddenly, boom, the entire dynamic changes. A massive conflict has been introduced. The gap between the vast number of people and the isolation of the individual creates a story.
Think of tension as potential energy. You pull a rubber band back by introducing a conflict or opening a loop, but pulls the rubber band tight. The audience stays engaged because they want to feel the satisfying release when the rubber band snaps forward and the conflict resolves.
But for longer formats, Sabba introduces this concept of the hook sandwich, right?
Yeah, because for a 10-minute presentation or a deep dive email, one initial pull of the rubber band isn't enough to hold someone. You need multiple mini hooks, multiple moments of tension and release layered throughout the communication.
It makes complete sense. Tension is potential energy.
Mm.
It's like fishing, the hook gets them on the line, but tension is how you reel them in. But let me push back on the application of this. Can you have too much tension?
Oh, absolutely.
Like if I am constantly pulling the rubber band tighter and tighter and treating every single slide of my presentation like a high-octane cliffhanger, doesn't that eventually just exhaust the audience? Do they just burn out and stop caring?
They absolutely will burn out. Constant, unrelenting tension is just as ineffective as zero tension. That is precisely why the payoffs in the hook sandwich are so critical.
You have to let go.
You have to let the rubber band snap forward. You establish the tension, you hold it just long enough to ensure engagement, and then you must deliver the value. You release the tension, give the audience a moment of cognitive satisfaction, and then you gently pull the rubber band back again with a new, perhaps more nuanced, point of tension.
It's a rhythm.
It's a rhythm of inhale the conflict, exhale the resolution.
That rhythm really is the difference between a master communicator and an amateur. So we have the theory, but let's actually look at the autopsies from the real world. In this live session, they literally roasted real submissions from creators, brands, and agencies, showing what actually works in practice and what completely fails.
And honestly, the failures are far more illuminating.
They really are, because they reveal the deeply ingrained professional traps we all fall into. The first major trap is the illusion of production value. Let's call it the polished but pointless syndrome.
This autopsy was brutal to watch.
It was brutal, but so necessary. A company called Adrian Flux Van Insurance submitted this beautifully shot cinematic video. The lighting was gorgeous, the editing was crisp. It featured a man happily working in a garage, making a wooden chair and brewing a cup of coffee.
Sounds lovely.
It does. And it ends with the tagline, "Stick to what you know." But it completely bombed. Why? Because the conflict presented, the mild effort required to boil a cup of coffee or sand a piece of wood, was entirely irrelevant to the pain points of buying van insurance. Good production value only amplified a fundamentally bad idea.
This raises an important question about authenticity versus production value. People assume high fidelity equals high engagement. It just doesn't. The second major failure they diagnosed is the cognitive traffic jam.
Oh, right. Sideways 6.
Yeah, a tech company called Sideways 6 created a pitch video specifically directed at Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase. It was hyper-edited, incredibly fast-paced, and deeply cluttered with graphics, text overlays, and newspaper clippings just flying across the screen.
It's just a mess.
They violated a fundamental limit of human working memory. If you try to say 10 things at once, the brain gets overwhelmed and remembers absolutely nothing.
And if you're pitching the CEO of the largest bank in America, his brain is already maxed out. You do not want to give him a cognitive traffic jam. Sabba noted that a simple, unpolished video of the founder just looking directly into the lens and speaking honestly about a single problem would have been vastly superior.
Totally. Which leads perfectly into the final and probably most common trap, the disease of fluffy outcomes and jargon.
Yes.
This is an epidemic in corporate communication. When we lack a concrete hook, we try to manufacture importance by using complex, invisible language. An ad agency called Anti submitted a pitch full of empty marketing jargon, claiming they create revenue-popping and scroll-stopping content.
Oh, revenue popping.
Right. Another company, Elevate Outdoor Landscaping, promised to meet personalized needs.
Personalized needs. What does that even mean? It's entirely invisible. You can close your eyes and picture personalized needs or synergy or revenue popping.
Yeah.
The human brain cannot visualize a buzzword, which means it cannot care about it. It's like someone wearing a cheap suit to hide a bad physique. We all see right through the suit.
The cure for the jargon trap is painful but necessary. You have to ruthlessly kill your adjectives and replace them with hard, undeniable facts.
Show, don't tell.
Exactly. Instead of claiming you build revenue-popping ads, actually put a screenshot of your Facebook ad dashboard on the screen and show the real ROI numbers. Instead of promising invisible, personalized needs for a landscaping company, promise a concrete reality that the customer actually cares about, like, we answer the phone from 5 to 9.
We answer the phone.
Mm.
It's so painfully real, and it instantly builds trust. Now, what about the submissions that actually survived the autopsy? A cleaning app called Chirp succeeded by using a brilliant juxtaposition hook. The sounds of not cleaning.
Which is completely unexpected.
Super unexpected. But the absolute standout was a storytelling coach whose company is literally called Rich Storytelling. She completely nailed the architecture.
She succeeded because she utilized clear, efficient structure right out of the gate. She didn't ramble. She started with, I'm going to tell you 3 things. She provided the brain with a roadmap. And then she followed a golden rule of persuasive communication. Use half the words and double the examples.
And her example was incredible. She didn't stand there and pontificate about how she is a thought leader in narrative strategy. She shared a high-stakes, highly vulnerable story about frantically searching her hotel room for clean underwear right before she had to go downstairs to a major networking event.
That's real tension right there.
Right. She didn't claim she was good at storytelling. She proved it by deploying a gripping, relatable, high-tension story.
When you synthesize all of these critiques, a vital pattern emerges about the current landscape of human attention. In almost every single instance, raw authenticity, a real human face looking into the lens, and concrete, unvarnished facts significantly outperformed expensive animated doodles, hyper-fast editing, and polished marketing speak.
But let me challenge that definition of raw for a second.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of people interpret raw and authentic as permission to just turn on their smartphone camera and ramble for 10 minutes with zero preparation. Where is the line? When does raw authenticity stop being charming and just become sloppy and unprofessional?
That's a great point. The line is entirely defined by respect for the viewer's time and clarity of thought. Raw does not mean unscripted, and it certainly does not mean unstructured.
Okay.
The storytelling coach with the underwear story was raw in her vulnerability, but her narrative structure was ruthlessly efficient. She didn't waste a single syllable. Sloppy communication is what happens when you haven't done the hard, grueling work of distilling your message down to its absolute core.
So it's about distillation.
Yes. Authentic communication is when you have done that hard work, and you have the courage to deliver that distilled message directly, without hiding behind shiny, distracting production tricks.
So let's distill all of this for you, the listener, so you can actually apply this architecture the next time you need someone to listen. First, at the very beginning of your communication, make a deliberate choice. Are you offering a rock-solid promise that you can absolutely deliver on, or are you creating an open-loop mystery box?
Second, use juxtaposition. Smash 2 unrelated concepts together, or break a visual heuristic to force the brain to wake up.
Third, inject tension into your narratives by swapping the static word "and" for the conflict-driven word "but."
And finally, ruthlessly kill the jargon. Take your fluffy adjectives out back, bury them, and replace them with hard, undeniable facts.
And remember, these are not just arbitrary tricks for YouTubers trying to get views or marketers trying to sell canned water. These are the fundamental rules of human engagement. Whether you are typing out a crucial email to your team, standing up to defend a budget proposal, or just trying to convince a friend of a new perspective, understanding how to structure attention and manage tension is a universal superpower.
It really is the only way to break people out of that glassy-eyed default scrolling state.
But as we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on long after you finish listening. If every single brand, every digital creator, and every corporate professional eventually masters this exact architecture, if everyone perfects the art of the open loop, the manufactured tension, and the carefully hidden product, what happens when our brains adapt?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. What happens when the audience becomes completely immune to these psychological triggers? What will the next evolution of human attention look like when all of today's perfectly engineered hooks finally stop working?